Hello, everyone. Kathy Bacon here with What's Your Story Radio. First of all, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I have a very special guest that I'm very excited to talk to. We met each other when we both lived in Thailand, and I followed his journey, and I think he's followed mine a little bit. And I'm very excited to talk to him about what he's been doing as far as being a civic journalist, and what that's about for him, what he's done along his journey. I also want to thank you all for emailing me, for supporting me in this journey of What's Your Story. I love having the guests that I have on, and I love getting your feedback. So thank you for that. I'm broadcasting from Seattle, Washington. And I want to remind everyone that we all have our own unique story. There's no judgment here. How he did it or how she did it or why they did what they did really has nothing to do with us. It is their own unique story. So thank you for being so cognizant to that and really supporting people that have the courage to come on and talk about what they've done and how they've done it. And sometimes it's very hard for people to come on and talk about themselves, to say the least. It's easy to talk about others and what they're doing, but it's not easy to talk about themselves and how they got there. So thank you very, very much for being part of this with me. I really appreciate it. So let's get on with it. Jeff Warner is my guest, and he is a civic journalist, writer, documentary photographer. He's a filmmaker, and he's a media consultant. Applying formal education in communication, sociology, and psychology, he harnesses his skills, including photography and video production, graphic layout design, writing, various genres, editing, interviewing, interpersonal communication, social media voice, and media project design. It sounds like there's about nothing he hasn't done when it comes to harnessing these skills. He has for a decade been filling various roles in social research and media. This has included as an employee for television news, newspapers, and magazines. He's also a freelancer, and he has worked for private companies, including Reuters, Stringer on Barack Obama's press pool, and for government and non-government organizations. Jeffrey's written and photographic work has been published or exhibited in the United States and Southeast Asia at various venues and academic conferences, including TEDx, and online for entities such as Royal Photographic Society and for the United Nations. While Jeffrey has experience in Europe and Bosnia, he has since 2010 been living in northern Thailand. There, he has been dedicated to independently focusing chiefly on the societal impacts of economic development phenomena, particularly its impacts and traditional cultures. This has included learning from some of the region's rural, marginalized people, primarily indigenous ethnic hill tribe communities. Jeffrey has worked with Burmese refugees on the Thai-Burma border. He has regionally traveled to or worked in Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Myanmar. Jeffrey has 2 books that, as a context for studying development impacts, focus on the Southeast Asia region. He is now pursuing a master's PhD degree studies in Taiwan at National Dong University. And wow, that's a mouthful. So without further ado, I'd like you to meet Jeffrey Warner. And here we go. There he is. Thank you, Jeffrey, for joining me. Hi, so nice to see you. And it's so amazing how we can talk just like this, and we're millions of miles away, right?
Yes. We met at a small hair salon in northern Thailand.
Yes, we did.
We've been talking back and forth for a long time. So it's
yes,
an honor to be here with you today and supporting your platform as well, Kathy.
Oh, thanks so
Yeah.
much. And I know people have been so interested in hearing your story. All week I've gotten people saying, who is this guy? What is he doing? What's a civic journalist? I mean, what is all this stuff? So I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad you're going to tell us all about this.
Mm.
Your personal journey of becoming a global citizen, wow, I mean, has a big meaning, and I'm sure it has a big meaning to you. Um, One of the things that you say so openly is that we're all in this together. You say that quite frequently in your writings and in your posts on Facebook. It's like we're all in this together, and then there's damn it, we're all in this together, right?
Right. Right.
So tell me a little bit how this started. Let's start back when you first were living in Hibbing, Minnesota. I mean, you lived in a small hometown. It was quite diverse, you said, and it was an industrial kind of town.
Mm.
But you ventured away from there. And how did that go? When did that
I mean,
start?
it's through these journeys that I've been able to grasp some concept of where I come from, per se, at least in this lifetime. And I guess where I come from is just a small mining town in northern Minnesota. And I mean, at that time, I was part of I guess I'll use the majority social group that was there, the pioneers or the colonists, I'll say, that come from Europe back in the late 1880s and worked in the mines there. So I grew up in that environment. So as I've kind of tried to process this journey, per se, that I've been on, I have to realize that I'm also part of that pioneering spirit, potentially. So the town that I come from it's on kind of the edge of the civilization in North America. So venturing out from that, I've always had like a particular interest in communication,
Yeah.
and particularly communicating with people that are misunderstood.
Yes.
And ever since I was a kid, I've always felt compelled to reach out to those margins of society. I'm still figuring out why that is.
I understand how you feel about
Mm.
that. I think the first time that I went to Thailand, I was so overwhelmed with like joy, and that I felt that I just felt so at home there.
Mm.
It was a very interesting feeling, and I managed my way around Thailand
Mm.
very easily, and people took to me, and I think I was a Thai monk in another life. That's what I actually think.
Mm.
Because I could go back there anytime. You could drop me off anywhere in Thailand, in a village, anywhere, and I would get along just fine. Um, so I understand, but it's funny to think that you were from kind of a mining town, and then all of a sudden your beliefs from a young boy took hold.
I
And
mean, we adapt to our physical environments, right? I mean, we're
yes,
adaptive creatures, just like all living beings are adaptive creatures. So I adapted to the environment that I was born into. But as I tried to fit the mold, per se, of
yeah,
the culture there, it never worked for me. So at one point in my life, some things happened. Like I got laid off from doing industrial work and decided that I was going to go into university as a bit older. I mean, I was in my early 20s before I started a bachelor's degree. But it's not so much about the formal education. It's an environment to expose you to new ideas. So I went off to the University of Wisconsin Superior, which is, I like really more grassroots, small places that are a cauldron of ideas and where people can focus on more specific things that aren't maybe controlled by more of the bureaucracies of institutions. So there I was able to do all the things that I rebelled against when I was in high school.
yeah.
So I was able to be in choir, I was able to travel, I was able to, do all of the things that I didn't do when I was much younger because I was working on engines and learning how to weld and things like that.
Right,
So when
right.
I went into university, it really opened me up to basically it was a de-learning and an untangling of belief systems that were instilled in me from when I was well, from when I was born, right? So that led to my journey, and I always knew that I wanted to be some kind of documentary photographer or something. I watched National Geographic
Yeah.
shows obsessively when I was a kid. So it wasn't until later, many years later, when I was in Thailand, that I was actually living those National Geographic specials in my mind. But initially, I went off to university for about 4.5, almost 5 years, and designed
Yes.
my own major that was intuitive to what I felt were the things that I wanted to learn about: sociology, psychology, the different dynamics of the human condition. And that eventually led me to Bosnia, which was the first time that I'd ever really been exposed to the world. This is when time when I started to be able to see this planet that we all live on from more of a space view, and to be able to grasp the concept, basic stuff, to be able to grasp the concept of distance, of connection, of world history, of ethnicity, religion, and how these belief systems that we have that are wrapped around these experiences that we have impact our relationships with each other and with our natural world. So being in Sarajevo for that period of time, uh, I was not prepared for that. I was basically a 28-year-old, quite naive still in terms of not only what human beings are capable of, but also what people are capable of living through. So being there and going with a local guy named Giovanni, very special fella that uh, fought during the war, we went to houses every day and delivered food to people that were still impacted from that war 12 years prior. So, I mean, I could talk many details about that, but basically that experience gave me my own latent form of PTSD in terms of seeing things. But at that time, it was just seeing things that other people had lived through, terrible things. But yet, uh, they still stayed together through social cohesion. They still stayed together through the resilience of the human spirit. And that experience alone has inspired all of my work from that point, right?
Yeah.
So people can live through really terrible society-created things when they're connected together, and we see our commonalities in terms of the human condition more than our differences in terms of physical appearance. So that was the biggest thing about Bosnia for me. That initially, that was kind of the initial step.
Well, you must have been there at a time, that was very heavy weighing on the culture and the people. And when we're here, we're kind of isolated in a lot of ways in the United States. We don't get to see dead people. They cover them up.
Yeah.
We don't get to see dead people in the streets, or everything is pretty isolated. So when we get out of this world that we live in here and actually see that there is death, there is killing, people aren't okay, but yet that human spirit of connection that brings us all together is truly there. And we don't talk about that so much here.
Mm. Well, I mean, there are the Native American population might talk about it there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I didn't see death per se, but I did see that just because the war is over, the bullets stop flying doesn't mean the war is over. So what was, as a social psychologist, what was quite fascinating for me was to see the long-term impacts
Right.
of that experience. So when you're in a culture that's all still shocked with levels of PTSD and still trying to heal, it and then you will naturally adapt to that environment as well. So I think that was one of the profound things. And then from a media coverage perspective is that during that time there was so much what I learned from the local peoples that and there's so much reported on what was happening during that time, but no follow-up later on. So in terms of a global psyche, people were still kind of back in the way people were in the 1990s, the mid 1990s, and that for me was quite interesting and profound to observe. Minus my own personal experiences of walking around there. I'm trying to feel and take it in as much as I could, maybe a bit too much. My skin has gotten a little thicker since then, but I'm so grateful for that experience to meet those people that taught me that there are people who have it a lot worse off and people who survive through major things that cannot be survived through unless you have social unity and cohesion.
And you seem to find those social unity types of environments wherever you go. Your pictures show that. You go into a village and you are immersed in that culture. All of a sudden you are immersed in it and you are part of their being, their culture.
In a sense, right? I try to just energetically meld in. That doesn't mean I'm necessarily part of the culture, but at least I'm there as a human being. And that's where my heart. We're all here as human beings. So I've had people ask me, "How can you get these photographs?" And I'm like, "I'm just there. I'm not trying to extract energy. I'm not trying to disturb anything. I'm just there." So being there, I don't see necessarily people of different heights or even different skin colors or shapes so much. I see human beings and I see connections that people are having, and I use that tool to just simply, as a time machine, just click those connections and touch those connections. And as I've gone, there's people who've traveled a lot more than I have, right? But of all the places that I've been, and the soul travel included, I see that people have the same connections everywhere. We all love each other in some way. We all need a healthy environment. We all need familiar connections and community, and to feel loved and loving and understood and be understanding. So that's how this journey has transformed my worldview. And it mostly started when I was in Bosnia.
Well, you're very mindful, and that's something that most people look for in life is being mindful. And as I see your travels, I see you as a very mindful person and a person that lives right here, right now, not beyond that, not about that before, but now. And you have quite a calm way of moving about the world, from what I've seen, and it's really lovely. It really is.
I have similar thoughts and feelings about you as well, right? So that's why I'm excited to come here and talk, because as you go through your life journey, sometimes I meet other people who have taken the red pill per se, and they go out and find their truth. They face their inner animals and learn to reconstruct and nourish an identity that is yours. And I think that global travel does that, and being able to expose yourself to environments that are completely foreign from what the ones that you were raised,
Right.
enable you to see the human condition and also be able to reflect upon some of the social forces that you're encompassed by when you are in your own cultural bubble.
So very
If that
true.
makes sense.
Yes, it does. It all makes sense. Tell us a little bit about Jeff's journalism, because what you say is, I prefer contributing to society by sharing what I learn from smelling both the skunks and the roses. I love
Yeah.
that. I love
Mm.
that. So
Well,
how has your journalism, I mean, you've gone from Bosnia to traveling, you ended up in Thailand. And you went to Thailand in 2010.
mm.
And that was the first time that you had actually been in any Asian culture, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is where I started to, you start to see the world really is a yin-yang energy dynamic. And
Yes.
after returning from Bosnia, I went to my hometown, and needed to reroute. After 10 years, you start to have your own identity uh, issues as well, because you have to reconstruct your worldview. You know about this. You've traveled as well. Your viewpoints on what you believed were the way that things should be
Right.
have to be reconstructed. So before going to Thailand, I went back to my hometown, worked in a local newspaper there, and that was when I started to be able to reflect upon my own history, and not only that, the lineage of my family, and where was I really, and started to see and learn that over 40 different ethnicities were in that area at one time.
Wow.
Right? 40 different languages were spoken anyway. That's just what I
Right.
learned, and
Right.
and that in itself is quite profound. So to speed that up, I went to my hometown for a period of time, and then I traveled through Europe, and that enabled me to also see more of an expansion and the diversity of the world, and mostly starting to be able to grasp the concept of how global events and major world things that are at least recorded are impact all of us, and how we're all connected in some way. So I tried plugging myself back into my root culture again, and once again, it just didn't work for me in my soul. So following the synchronistic path, I was granted the opportunity to go to Thailand, and at that time when I landed there, it was a place that my external environment matched more with my internal environment. And I decided that I was going to, instead of being like water and having so much movement, I decided I was going to enter my earth element. And there's a mountain there, and I'm just going to stare at that mountain and learn from that mountain until I create something, and to weather the storms, and there's been plenty of storms, to create something that is of a new identity of sorts that's more synonymous with, I believe, my identity of the way I should be as a person and why I'm alive. And Thailand is not it's a challenging environment, but yet it's also a place that can support your personal growth if you allow it.
I agree.
If you try to change it or try to reject it, it will boot you out very quickly.
Yes, it will.
So it's you know what I'm saying. So I learned a lot there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll stop there and see.
No, we may go a little bit longer than 30 minutes just because I really am enjoying this conversation with you. And I think it really helps all of us to hear that someone like you, someone as you, moves around in the world the way you do, and also what you've learned and how this journey has taken you to many different places within yourself that you weren't even thinking about. So, so tell us a little bit about Jeff's journalism then.
Okay.
Because you started then documenting, taking photos. I mean, it all sort of progressed into this amazing thing that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I needed to find some platform. I've always wanted to do my own thing. Every time I've tried to, work a normal job or something like that, I've at least what I've been trying to do in the past, I always feel like I have a different calling, right? So all of the places that I've had the privilege to work at have taught me skills, or at least some base amount of skills to be able to create something. So this Jeff's journalism thing, come from another angel that I met there. It was my web developer named Tim Davies, and he really helped me and has continued to help me develop a digital platform to be able to put together at least a framework of this material. So the idea with Jeff's journalism is to create a platform to take people on, a series of adventures and journeys, but also as a humanitarian initiative. So it's been building more and more and more.
Yes.
Using this. So what is civic journalism? Okay, civic journalism, at least from my understanding of it, is using media, which is one of the most powerful human-made creations on planet Earth, right? And to use that to build social capital, right? So to bridge gaps of societal understanding so that we can understand each other more. And that energetically builds society. And experimenting with this over many years, I've observed myself that it creates societal healing that is rooted in misunderstandings with people. So essentially, that's what it is. I've been trying to use it as a humanitarian platform, and what I mean by humanitarian platform is to provide a channel for people to provide resources or ideas, or at least be able to understand people that maybe they didn't understand before, or maybe they want to understand. So it's both a personal journey, but it's also a way for to create channels that other people can maybe use those ideas and understandings to filter into their own life, and hence the life of everybody. So in essence, that's really what I'm trying to do. So I've been trying to build this website over the years, and tried to build this initiative over the years, piece by piece by piece, somehow, some way.
Yes.
And it seems to be at a point now where, okay, it's a base platform that now can be used for potentially something larger, such as facilitation platforms, such as different ways of bringing different people together to talk about the global issues that we all share. So that has been a journey.
We're all part of that these global issues, and I think one of the things that I remember most before I went to Thailand in the 90s, and we lived there for 4 years in Bangkok, was how the United States was telling me not to go.
Right.
Don't go. Don't spend your money there. It's dangerous. These people don't, care. And it was so far from the truth. So far from the truth of what Thailand actually was. And for you to go into these communities and build what you're building opens up people's eyes to that we're all connected and we're all human. And don't go spouting off about another culture unless you've been there and been involved in it.
Somehow, some way, right? So I've had people, say to me like, well, it is this way. I don't know. I have to go there and at least try to feel myself, You can never live other people's experiences total, but you can try. And if you can expose yourself as much as you can to your own feelings and thoughts and your sensory perceptions, then you can gain at least some empathetic understanding of what might be happening and how it's connected. So when I first went to Thailand, I wanted to get involved. And the most prominent local issue at that time that I knew about was issues related to Burma. So
Yes.
I was asked by an organization to shoot some images. They liked what I did, and then I was asked more and more to, to be involved in that and support those activism efforts.
Right.
And that led me to the Thai-Burma border. And at that time, I heard there were people living on a rubbish dump there. And once again, naive, but I couldn't believe it, and I had to go. To make a long story short, I ended up on that environment and was extremely moved. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
And then one thing led to another, and eventually I decided that, okay, I need to try to tell their story in some way. So during my Christmas breaks and birthdays and different things like that, different times like that, I would get on a bus with trembling hands and scared to death and go into those environments and just start documenting stuff. And then eventually wanted to tell their story. And I spent time there from sunrise to sunset to try to get the understanding of what their day is like. And I just observed that, I started observing societal patterns. So even though they're living on a rubbish dump, you think, oh, they're in this, whatever people perceive that their situation is. People are people, and it was a very intact community of people that were in a very dire situation, but yet were still functioning in a way that humans do. So I started seeing hour by hour, okay, wait a minute, 10 o'clock 2 days ago, Freddie was brushing his teeth at the same time. These people are doing these things, and then I just started documenting that. And that's what the Dignity Amidst the Rubbish book does. So it attempts to bring you into that environment to reflect upon their societal cohesion, not so much the environment. And I think that can get us to realize that people are people, and this whole development paradigm around the world, capitalist development paradigm, trickles down and sideways. And so if we can reflect upon the human condition in those environments, then we can more theoretically look at how people can better adapt in some ways to new stressors, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. So tell us how we can find Jeff's Journalism. It's a website. So tell us the address to that website, Jeff.
It's just www.jeffsjournalism.com.
Okay. So I would encourage everyone to go there and have a look, because Jeff really does talk about his journalism journey. It's incredible. And some of the things about your hometown and how you first noticed them coming together in a small mining town,
right,
to a global look at what you're seeing now. You have a project that you're doing now, and this is very exciting to me. You're also working with it through Patreon, which people can donate. And I know you probably don't want me to say it, maybe you do, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that this is a project that we can all be part of.
Right.
And that means that if you have $2, it's enough. So sometimes when we look at what someone's doing and we see that they are trying to make an impact and a change in our world, and we think, oh, well, I don't know what I could do. What could I do? I only have $5. Well, I was told once when I was fundraising for an organization that I started called Dress for Success that people said, it doesn't matter if you have $5 or $2 because you, again, become part of the whole.
Right. It's about energy.
Exactly.
It's
So,
about connection.
right. So let's talk a little bit about the Moments Pause Project, reminders of our natural roots. And this is the culmination of life's journey and perhaps even your life purpose.
Yeah.
And this is you taking action, which reflects the core of your story.
Yeah, I mean, I have to try to think about how do you, people can talk about, everybody has a story,
Yes.
right? Everybody has a journey. People can talk for days and days and days about their journey. How can we bring it together so that people can channel their own journey, their own ideas, their own thoughts into a collective? I think that you see what these people perceive as these divisions and that the world is crumbling. And I think that what would be beneficial for global society is for people to see that we're actually coming closer together. But we need the grassroots frameworks in order for that to happen. So whether that be through microeconomies, whether that be through certain societal movements that start to bridge gaps between people. And I think that that's happening as global awareness is raising about certain things that have been perpetuating for a long time. What I'm trying to do is to use this journey and this media to serve as like a campfire per se. So people have been sitting around campfires since the beginning of time. So what if we take a story of people living indigenous peoples living in northern Thailand that you don't see, or Cambodia, or Myanmar, or people living on a rubbish, or anywhere. These most completely opposite sociocultural environments that what you would see, say, in northern Minnesota, where I come from, or California. But in those environments, you think you're so different, but yet you're able to listen to the voices and see the images of the same human behaviors that you also experience with your own family and your own friends. If we can take that media and use it as a discussion platform for people to talk about things, I'm at least aspiring to have that be an ability to bring people closer together. So that's one element of this Moments Pause project. So the idea is to take a moment's pause, right? To look at the value of our societies and our cultures and societal cohesion. That's one element of it.
Yes. I also think that in doing this project, well, first of all, I love the whole idea of the campfire. Who doesn't love a campfire? When I think of campfire, I think of just being warm and fuzzy and having marshmallows and being around a campfire with sometimes people you don't know, sometimes people you do know, but there's just something about that that brings people together. So I love that. I love that analogy that you used for that.
Human beings used to come together in the middle of villages to discuss whether or not to go to war.
Right.
And that campfire, we're all made of fire element, so that campfire can provide the basis of discussion around the feeling of nature.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. So this project, is this a project that you've just recently started? And how is it coming together so far?
Well, the idea, I mean, it's something that I've been building, I think, throughout these 7 or 8 years. But I think it's a living process, so it keeps changing. But now is the point where I think it's come where the name, I've changed the name. It used to be like the Indigenous World Voices Project, but Indigenous is a very political word, and it's very specific to very specific people, and that meaning has very specific things to those people. So I need to make it in a way that is more about global society and all of us. So right now it isn't a platform that people can contribute to in various ways. So it can be through funding, it can also be through ideas. But the idea right now is we want to maybe travel into different environments like the United States or Europe, different places, and start to have these discussions, these campfire discussions, and to bring together a collaborative network to start taking this moment's pause and looking at what are we doing as a global society and who are we really? This is really the essence of what this is about, the heart of it. So it's about taking people on journeys, okay? It's about having global awareness of issues. It's about community development projects. So we want to bring some of this media back to the communities and have them reflect upon themselves and do community development projects, like a permaculture project is one thing we want to do. And again, it's about providing a platform for discussion and action. Those are the four main components of it. So it's called the Moment's Pause Project.
I like it.
And it is a culmination of this journey.
Fantastic.
As you know, this radio show that you're doing is in exactly what this is about. It's about us coming together like you and I are right now to, okay, we're spending a lot of time listening to me blab away, but you're providing a platform for other people to consider that there are options out there, that people such as yourself can create something, that we can do something in the world. We don't have to have a global victim mentality. We can use our inner guidance and external resources to create things that we feel need to be done in this world. And that's why I feel inspired.
Well, you're very inspiring. You're very inspiring. And when I think about you being in Thailand, I think, if I could just live my life through Jeff, I would be in such
sure?
I said, well, and I also think when I was reading some of your information that you had sent me, it was like, gosh, I mean, maybe he needs an assistant.
A partner. I have a partner in Thailand who has helped me a lot, Miss Tanya Kumbaram, and other people who have these angels that have come along the way that are also want to do it to support. I believe that people really do want to take action in this world, and I believe that people are inherently good, right?
I believe so too.
And we all want things to happen, but the system is set up so that it's very challenging for that to happen. But I believe there's a movement in the world that's enabling us to come together.
Yes, I believe so too. I believe so too. I think so too. And you know, it's based on belief systems that we're raised with a lot. You know, our parents get it from their parents, get it from their parents, get it from their parents. It's not right or wrong. It's just that we have to find our own way.
Right. Somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And the world is changing very rapidly, and now really is a time more than ever to take a moment's pause and to really look at our roots and who are we, where do we really come from, which is nature. It's not the city, it's nature.
Nature.
With a capital N. We're all part of it together. And I know this sounds dreamy what I'm talking about, but I've observed through some pretty harsh environments that people live in what keeps people alive, and that is the indigenous knowledge. It is the understanding of how we interplay with the natural forces in the world. And if we lose touch with that, right? And there's still people out there who understand this, who understand how to live in a community together and how to be nourished by nature and natural forces. And these are our teachers at this time.
Yes, and you're in a perfect place to have those surroundings and have those teachers around you, because you said it so perfectly. It's when you go to Thailand and you let yourself open up in some of these communities, there's no going back, and it's so hard to come back. I have to tell you, it's so hard to come back.
I've been observing your journey as well, because you share things so heartfelt, and it's not easy, is it?
Well, because I think sometimes people think because maybe I post things and maybe that I'm all that. Well, I'm not. I'm constantly learning and growing and changing, and the things that I post are things I need to hear.
Right.
You know. So tell us if there's anyone out there that would like to contribute through um, this site. Could you tell us how we could do that?
So, I mean, I took everything. If you go to the website on my web, it's long and everything is on there. So, but I started this. So if you go to patreon.com,
Yes.
the Moments Pause Project.
Perfect.
And the very least that you can do there is, I think it's a nice way to put everything into perspective. So there's a video on there that I need to update, but it's good enough for now, and it explains all of the project and what the main idea is. It gives more about my background. All the links are there. It explains the project goals. It explains, the different mechanisms that people can contribute. So for me, this isn't necessarily about funding per se. It's about energy, and it's about a movement.
Yeah.
Of people coming together to contribute to a platform. So yeah, patreon.com, the Moments Pause Project. That's it.
Perfect.
That's where it's at, and the madness is there.
Yeah, well, I have all your information on my website at www.kathybacon.com, and your contact information is there, and your website address is there. There's some information about you, and this interview will be on the website as well. It'll be on YouTube, on my channel, and it will be all over Facebook because I will be sharing it, and as you will hopefully be sharing it, because it was nice to sit down tonight and have a candid conversation with you without any interruptions.
Right.
And when we were at the hair salon, we were interrupted.
At A's hair salon.
Yes. But I remember then you were in a place where you didn't like your job and you wanted to do what was close to your soul.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Yeah.
And I remember saying, you need to go do it. You've got to do it. And you are.
I think that there are many, 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 many people that are in that same position, right?
Yes.
And so what I'm also trying to do is lead a little bit through example, or live through example, in the way that, okay, it's not easy. So it might seem like, okay, I've had no funding through this, and I'm trying to find a way. So luckily I was born with some good health and a few talents, and have gained at least a couple skills along the way, or at least the base elements that enable me to keep going. But there are a lot of people that want to go out and do stuff, but can't. And I have also been in that same position. So this is also an inspiration platform where if people say, I can't go for my dreams, I can't do this because of this. Okay, some people are in circumstances where, okay, I understand that, but we can do something. We can do what we can do. So if someone were to say to me, oh, I can't do that, I think I've reached a destination now through this journey that I can say, yes, you can. You can. And there's other people who have as well. You just have to be consistent and believe in yourself, and other people will believe in you. Right?
That's right.
I think this is really the core of it. And we're not taught this as children. We're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And what's one of those kinds of things, right? It's
right.
I want to be this, I want to be that, because that's the society that's prepping you from a child to be part of the capitalist system.
Yes.
Okay, it is what it is. I'm not going to talk about the capitalist system, but this is how we're programmed.
Right.
And we can deprogram that, especially nowadays with the global movement, with the technologies, with the things that we can do nowadays. I think we just need to be consistent and find people who are also doing things, and people who believe in what we're doing or trying to do. So with this project, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it to address the current state of global society, and that's people perceiving that we're in strife, that there's global issues. Okay, we have climate change. There are these things that are happening, but we can do something about it. Now's the time.
Yeah. We all can do something about it. We just have to believe that we can and just take the first step. That's a lot of times people won't even take that first step and they just say, I can't. And it's so funny when you allow yourself to take that first step, how everything falls into place. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But as humans, we have such a hard time just taking that first step because we're so afraid to fail when there is no failure.
Right. I used to, and I guess in some ways I still do, I would guide my life based on what I feared. So my greatest fear was to get on that plane. That means that's where I'm supposed to go. Not by where I'm most comfortable. What do I most fear? If you go to where you fear the most, that's where you're going to grow the most. And it's counterintuitive to our base wiring. But the formula is that it does work, just as you just said, right? So we might have trembling hands when we do something good. Because if it's coming from your spirit and it's intuitive, it's the right thing to do.
Always.
So I like how you just frame that up. It's so true. Taking the first step.
First step, yes.
And then taking another. And another.
And you, at the time when I first met you, you were in progress of taking that step. You hadn't quite done it, but you were in progress of it. And I bet you are so happy you took it.
Well, I was well into the journey, but I think when we had met, I was trying to solidify and make more sense and put it into a way that's more, I'll use the word like concrete and even professional per se, in the way of that it's clear. The message is clear and the platform is clear and the reasons for it are clear. And I've worked through my own karma as much as I can and how do I fit into this? So I've been on a journey, but I've reached the destination of a new identity. And I think that's the foundation that's been built now. And I think that's what a lot of people seek to do in this lifetime.
They do.
And self-efficacy is a word for it. Some people call it different things, but it really is providing, you're doing something. The wind underneath your wings is based on the identity and of your identity and who you know you are, and that I'm hoping. No, I'll just say I know that's that's where I'm at this time.
Yeah, you know.
It's just,
you know.
I don't like to say it outwardly, but I know.
Yes, you do know. I can see it in your face that you know.
Well, I can see it in your eyes that you can relate with what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally.
And I think a lot of people can, as other people can as well. But if we don't build these platforms together, like what you're doing, how can we enact be the change we want to see in this world? Yeah, we need each other.
Yeah, we really need
That's
each other.
It. Not to see our differences and this political divisions, each side thinking the other side is evil. There's no place for that in this time. There's no place for it. There's no time.
No, there is no time. You're absolutely right. And I think people should come out of their comfort zones and leave the United States. Go live somewhere else for a little while. Go see the world. I think so many people in the United States get kind of stuck here and they allow themselves to be stuck. And they create this kingdom, so to speak, of what they think their life should be like, when in fact, there is so much work to be done that we can all participate in, just like what you're doing. And it's very important work. And we all can take a little piece of it and chisel away at it.
Yeah. And we can do that most effectively when we expose ourselves to other perspectives on the human condition and other perspectives on, there's more than one way to do the same thing, right? I mean, this percolates into religion, it percolates into, to culture, which is, connected with religion, and these things that, how we interact with each other in our natural environment, right? It's environmental, and internal is also environmental. So it is, as you say, right? But if we gain different perspectives, we don't necessarily, all countries in the world are like that, right? We're all insular. But we have opportunity through the modern channels to be able to expose ourselves. I think the important thing, Kathy, is that we just begin to listen to each other more and try to understand the perspective of where people are coming from. That is really the most important part. And that's what I'm trying to do with this civic journalism work. That's what I'm trying to do with what this has culminated into with this project, is just provide a platform that people can listen to one another within a safe space and within a warm space, which, isn't always harmonious.
Right.
But it can be.
Yeah. Well,
So that's what I'm trying to say.
Before we go, the time went so fast, there was no way that you and I could have ever spoke for 30 minutes. It wouldn't have happened. So I'm so grateful that you were able to stay and talk more about the project and talk more about just pieces of ourselves in this life, because we're all very, very important to the outcome.
Yes.
So thank you for being here and sharing with us your story. And I know we didn't even touch on all of it. So I'd love for you to come back when you're doing your project and you're immersed in it and you just need some time to talk about it again. Please come back and talk with me, because I will always, my door will always be open.
Thank you, Kathy.
But before we go, I want to read something that you said.
Okay.
And it really resonates with me, and I hope it resonates with everyone else out there as well. I'm sure it will, if you're on the same sort of journey that we're on. It goes like this. My world travels were further providing me with other points of view. These experiences help me fully realize that we are somehow all connected to one another. What happens in one part of the world often affects others in another part of the world. We are all responsible for each other.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you for being here, and I look forward to our time together again soon. Thank you all for tuning in and supporting What's Your Story and supporting Jeff. If you want to know how to do that, you can go onto my website, you can go to his website, and you can get that information, because anything that we can do to help each other is what we should be doing. So thank you, Jeff, so much for being here. Thank you, everyone that joined in this evening. I appreciate your support and your time and for you to share your story. So thank you, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Kathy.